Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. In the last video we managed to look at pytest and its basic integration. In this video we'll be looking at code coverage, and this is basically checking how many lines of code that our tests cover. So to do this we need to install a plugin called pip install. It's called pytest-cov, like that, and as it installs, this is the package name. It's called pytest-cov. If you want to get it, you can just Google pytest coverage, and here is the documentation. So what this plugin does is that it's going to check each line of code that we execute in our tests. So for example, in our classroom we have our test.py. It's going to check each line like this one, and it's going to check how many lines of code this line affects in our original code, and it's going to give us. So after we install that, we need to do some configuration. So similarly, when we installed pytest, we created this pytest.ini file, and so similarly for pytest coverage we need to create a few files. But right off the bat, we can just come here and now run pytest. Let's see if first of all the old tests still run, and now you can see here that pytest had discovered that we've installed a coverage file. And these percentages that you are seeing here being appended, these are actually the percentages of code coverage, but you are going to see how we can be able to visualize that. Okay, so the way we do that, we need to append, we need to edit our pytest.ini file to add a few, we need to add a few things to this adopts function. But before we do that, let's do it the lengthy way. And I think I'm going to do this and maximize this so that we can all see. Let me okay, so I can come here and run pytest. Then I need to run a few commands. So here when we come to the documentation, it's saying installation, and we come to usage. It's saying when we run pytest, instead of just running pytest, we need to run with a few commands. That is -- coverage is equals to, and here you list down the folder or the parent folder and other subsequent folders that you want to test. In this case, oops, back to terminal. In this case I can say -- is equals to, I believe that's, instead of saying in our folder structure, instead of saying this folder, I can just do a dot. And usually in Python, dot means run in the current folder. And because our, where is the file? Our pytest.ini file is in the root folder. Hence, if I put the dot, the current folder is the root folder. So I don't need to type this. So if I do that and press enter, let's see what happens. Again, it's detected coverage. It's running the tests. Okay. Let them finish. And right off the bat, you can realize that there's a file here which has been created. It's called coverage. And when you try to open this file, probably the code editor will give us errors. Say this file cannot be displayed in the editor because it's either binary. So we never open that file. So, but here you can see that pytest has generated a report of all the files that it has gone and checked. So one of the interesting things we realized from this is that pytest has literally gone in all the Python files and has actually done the coverage for us. Even the files that are not relevant in per se in our testing, in this case It has also checked the migrations. It has checked coverage for models. It has done even in our virtual environment folder, and we do not want this. So it's important to notice one thing. Here when we said --ignore VNV, we explicitly told pytest not to run any tests that might be in that folder. So if there's any test maybe inside the lib, site packages, let me check something maybe like black. If there's any tests that are inside any of these folders, we've told pytest not to run any of those tests. But pytest-cov, what we've installed here, the coverage library that we've installed, is separate from pytest. So we also need to tell it to ignore checking in those files. Another thing we need to do is that we need, this is not a pretty thing to look at. I mean, when it prints all of these things, we want to tell it also not to print the results inside the terminal. So the way we do that again is we do pytest-cov -that. Then we can also do, I think is -cov-report, if I'm not wrong, report, and we say this is equals to HTML. So what you are telling it basically is, let me minimize this. So what you are telling pytest is run pytest, check all the files and ignore the files that are written here in the pytest.ini, do the coverage in the current folder, and we want the coverage report to be in HTML format. We don't want it to get printed here, we want it to generate HTML. Let me minimize this like that, and I'm going to run it again. Again, we've not solved the problem of ignoring all these folders, but I'm coming to that. Let me zoom out a little bit. So okay, let it run. So here we can realize that there's a folder that has been created called HTML coverage, HTML-cov, and this is what we've written here, report to be in HTML. So as this happens, I'm going to open this in Explorer as this finalizes, and I'm going to open this folder. So one of the things that we realize, let me return to this, is still, I think, trying to do coverage for all the unnecessary files. But as it does that, realize something, it has created all these HTML files, and all these HTML files correspond to a Python file. So for example, this classroom init.py file is inside this classroom is this file. There's a classroom admin, all those files have their own HTML. But here, and it has generated a bunch of other, JavaScript files. But here the most important file is this index.html. So I'm going to click on the index.html, of course, open in Chrome. And you can see that it's listed all the Python files that are in the project, even the ones that we don't want to check, like the virtual environment, manoj.py, and a few others here. And it's telling us also the coverage that we have. Ideally, we would like that all our files be 100% code coverage. But let's look here at classroom models.py, because this is the file that we've been testing in the entire of this tutorial. So I'm going to click on it, and it's telling me that 21 of the lines have been run, 2 are missing, and 0 has been excluded. So if I click on the green, it's going to show me all the lines that have been run, and the red is the lines that have not been run. So this means that we've not tested this line yet, and our tests have not covered this line yet. So in this video, this is what we are going to do. We are going to write tests so that we have 100% code coverage and not 91. Another thing we need to do is that we need to figure out a way of not checking all these files. And the way we do that, let me clear this, is that we create a file called coverage.rc. So I'm going to come here, file, new file, I'm going to save this. and I'm going to call it dot coverage rc, like so. Oops, it's not a text. Rename. Okay, and in this file I've created here a boilerplate, and this is what we are going to use. I'm just going to copy this, and don't worry guys, I'm going to provide this code in the link in the description below, so make sure to copy it. And I'm just going to paste it here. There's some stuff here that is not necessary. Okay, and these are not necessary for this project. Okay, so what is a coverage.rc? Okay, so this .coverage rc file is similar to, if you've done JavaScript, is similar to maybe Babel rc, is similar to maybe other configuration files or pylint rc files that get created, is similar to a pytest.ini. And this is, we are saying these are coverage rc to control the coverage command that we are running. We are saying that the source is the dot, which is, remember in the previous, we are saying that the source is here. Now we are saying omit this folder, which is the VNV folder. Also go ahead and omit all the folders inside there. I've just put this as a redundancy in case this one doesn't work. This is not necessary for now. We don't have a templates folder, but if we had done a complete Django project, perhaps we could have had a templates. We also don't have a static files folder for now. We don't have a node modules, so I can delete that for now. I'm also telling it to skip manage.py. We don't need to test this file because it's auto-generated by Django. It doesn't make sense. I'm also telling it not to test our settings files, which is now classroom. No, it's inside school, I believe. Okay, these are settings.py, so instead I'm just going to say don't test settings.py, and also don't test local settings. It doesn't make sense to test these two. I'm also saying don't test ASCII. This one we have ASCII, not WSGI, so I'm going to change this to ASCII.py. Don't test URLs. In this tutorial series, we won't be testing our URLs. Actually, I think we will, so let me remove this. But ideally what you do, you list down all the files and you list down all the folders that you don't want coverage to test. Another option of settings is the reporting. We can ask this plugin to report whenever we have code coverage of less than 100. It's going to generate here on this side an error saying that your tests have failed and we need to have a code coverage of 100. I usually think that's very, it's not a good thing to do, so I usually skip it. It's only for perfectionists who like doing that, or people who are just so serious about testing. I want to show missing test, so this one I've put as true, and skip covered. If you want to skip all the covered tests, such that if any of the files have 100% code coverage, you skip them and you don't show and you don't want to show them in the report, then this is where you can configure pytest to skip all those altogether. So in the interest of time, I'm going to cancel that. Another thing I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this and I'm going to put them here in the adopts. I can just literally put them anywhere so that we don't repeat that. And I'm going to save this and I'm going to close that. So now I can just run pytest like so. Okay. Said collected 6 items. It has finished faster. And now if I come back to, let me first delete this because it had old tests. Run pytest again. Let's see if it has omitted. Okay. Just give it a second. It's running HTML-cov. And now you can realize that all those redundant files that we didn't want coverage to do, it has kept them, and now in the index.html we only have the files that we are working with, and this is super awesome. Again, in our models.py we still see that 2 of these lines have not been covered. So what we are going to do is quickly we are going to come to our tests. I can minimize this for now. We are going to come to our tests, and I can actually just copy this as they are. But notice one thing, I'm actually going to write it from scratch. So I'm going to say class, we need to test this error. So actually before we come to test the other one, we need to test the error. So here we are tested up to excellent. So I can copy this. And we've said here, if we get a value that does not fit any one of these, we put an error. So here if I put a score of 1 or 1, for example, I expect this to be error. And now if I run this pytest, this is the reason is giving me an error here, is saying test grade excellent is already defined here above. So here we need to test, just give it a unique name, error, and I'm going to rerun this again. As it reruns, I'm going to come back here, open my index.js, and I'm going to open my models.py, and I'm going to refresh this. Notice now this line has been run, and now we are okay. And now the only line that is remaining is this in the classroom. And again, we've not tested for this classroom model. So what I'm going to do is I'm going now to create another class. I'm going to call it class I'm going to initialize this with the word test. Need classroom model. And notice for this I won't pass the test case. I'm just going to use a pure function because I'm using pytest, and I need actually to import pytest here for this to work. Another important setting that I've just realized that we need to do, we need to say pytest dot mark dot I believe db. I need to Google something. There's something we need whenever we use pytest directly. We need pytest mark django db. Let's see. And the piece of code I was looking for is this one. Pytest mark is equals to pytest.mark.db. So basically what this line of code does is that it just tells pytest not to save the data that we're generating to the database and just hold it in memory. So what it does, it prevents pytest from writing data to our database. Basically that's. So here we are not passing the test case, so because of that we need to import pytest. So and here I'll say define test classroom create. I'm going to pass the self, which is mandatory, and here I'm just going to copy one of these. Remember here we are testing the return statement. This is what was not covered. So come down. So here we are going to say classroom. And here we are going to pass the classroom. We need to make sure that we import classroom like so. And in this one we need the name is compulsory, the student capacity, and this one is not compulsory, so we need these two. I'm just going to copy them. So mixer.blend, and we need name. So here we are going to say name, and we are going to call this this is the physics class. So I expect that classroom result is equals to classroom.objects.last, and I want to assert that it should be classroom result.name, and I expect this to be okay. Let me look. Actually, we are supposed to test the string return. So yeah, because here we are testing the return, if the return statement, because that was what was not tested. So actually this needs to be assert string. Oops, need to cancel this like so. Is equals to physics, and I need to cancel that. Okay, so clear the terminal, run pytest. Close all these tabs, wait for it to finish. All passed. So if we refresh, there wasn't an error. Yeah, if we refresh now, we can see that we have 100% code coverage, and all the lines have been run. And this is what we mean by code coverage, is where we come and look at all the lines that have not been covered. So in the next, and now we can see that the overall code coverage we have is 89%. So guys, we need to make sure that, and I need to exclude this wizgy.py. So I need to come to my coverage.rc. We don't need to test. It has both ASCII and wizgy. Okay, so we need to make sure that we need to test the admin, we need to test our views, we need to test all our django-rest-framework views, and yeah, so that we make sure that all these other files, including the urls.py, we get 100% code coverage. So I hope, guys, that this tutorial has been helpful. If you're finding me for the first time, please make sure to subscribe and like the video. Please leave a comment below. I've linked all the materials in the link in the description below on my website. Please support the channel, and if you have any questions, you can follow me in the following social media links, and I look forward in seeing you in the next video. Bye.